Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Yating Zhang from Shaanxi Normal University. Today, my talk has three parts. The first is the early introduction and research. Second, visualizing the reception and the trend. Third, digitalization and production. First, about the early introduction and research. The context at that time is from 17th century on, the Western missionaries like Ferdinand Verbiest introduced European culture to Chinese. An English missionary, Timothy Richard, in 19th century, advised the court to send the royal young people, children of civil and military governors, and members of an imperial academy to visit foreign universities or study abroad to reduce the estrangement between the West and the East. In late 19th century, they introduced Western books, many are religious writings and non-literary works, in the coastal area were unavailable to inland scholars. The second is the very importance of learning foreign languages, especially English language. In 1863, English was first taught in the School of Combined Learning, the first foreign language school in China. Three training bases were set up for those who would study in Europe and America. Also, popularity to study in Japan made it possible for Chinese students to read more about medieval English literature. Reading in Modern English or Middle English was much encouraged. What should be noticed that the academic study in the era of Republic people is influenced by those scholars' integration of Chinese as Western culture, namely their familiarity with Chinese culture before their departure for study in Europe and America. Scholars like Yang Gechen, after their graduation return, advocate independent spirit and free will in academic study. They have inherited the academic tradition from Qing dynasty to value evidences and facts, but are influenced to study history from its gradual changes and evolution, with an emphasis on the mastery of foreign languages. As we can find that the first introduction and comment on medieval English literature, I use number 1 and 2. The first one means one city from Shanghai, one publishing house, that is the commercial press, and two journals issued by this house, Normal Monthly and Students Magazine. This is Normal Monthly, and this is the Students Magazine. The first author is introduced into China, of course, Geoffrey Chaucer, and his name is translated into Xiao by the editor Song Yuxin in his article Forum of European and American Novels in Normal Monthly. So here you can find that 孝肃之名著, that is his famous poems of Geoffrey Chaucer. You can find Chaucer's English name and the Canterbury Tales. And a very brief introduction on page 7 about the story, and then he's going to translate. The folks repaid in his own coin. Actually, it is the story, the tale, the nun's priest tale. So in his introduction, okay, he had a brief comment on Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales in classical Chinese. In Chaucer's time, Roman religion was quite popular and people believed in God. The Canterbury Tales is his most important work. Chaucer combined the story according to what he knew. He knew well about the world English people respected, and it can instruct people due to its meaning and its significance. The refined interest of two stories, namely the fox repaid in his own coin and the man who went to kill death, is similar to Aesop's fable. So this is Yu Xiu Sun. Okay, he is a Xiu Cai at that time, and he learned English from American woman missionary and tried to introduce Western literary works. And Beowulf was first introduced to China from the Students Magazine in English, summary of the story. And this school is at that time was called Government Preparatory School in Kaifeng City. So this is actually today is Henan University. So if I want to summarize, we can say that there were books, journals, and newspapers to introduce and make comments, but due to time limit, I will not show in detail but summarize. First is contemporary academic confirmation of its first arrival is misleading due to the unavailability of some materials. It is in 1913, not 1916, that Chaucer was known to Chinese readers. It is in 1917, not 1922, that Beowulf was first introduced. Also, in 1921, the scholar Mi Wu pointed out that professional academic writing and the translation of academic books should be viewed as essential to read literature works. Chinese scholars should be critical, make an academic trend abroad now, and bridge the East and West together. If we want to summarize, we can find that academic evaluation from 1920s to 40s is very consistent. For the sake of the general education, medieval English literature is narrated as a part of European and English early literary history, and almost all canonized writers are included in order to help Chinese readers have a general and systematic but simple understanding. As can be found, literary critics and historians focus on literary production is related to Chinese-UK relationship, historical background, continental influence, class, cultural displacement, interaction between Teutonic and Atlantic culture, especially on Chaucer about his contribution to popularizing the English language, writing skill and style. Such researches follow the Russian model, namely use realism as clues for the whole book, with a strong emphasis on its social significance and function, but little on artistic value. Some pioneers, like Dong Leijing, has clear consciousness that he is doing academic research, not just making general introduction. In 1940s, Zhang Fang's stress on textual evidences and Chaucer's later writings as realistic works as a keynote to later researches. It can be said that research at that time was kindled by personal study experience from American teacher or missionary, and a later study in European and American universities, a contemporary calling for new culture movement as a result of active publishing medium at that time. The second part, visualizing the reception and the trend. After 1949, Western literary works were expected to be useful to change the cultural situation in China at that time, but very soon was followed by a strong resistance. There grew a strong fascination with Western canonized works upon the opening reform in 1978. From 1990s on, academic study has gradually come into life and become active. Super Library, a digital library, is open to the researchers and readers. CNKI was set up. Digitalization, globalization, academic mobility make the study engaged with the international community, which makes the production richer. And one thing we have to mention is the very evaluation system in academic organizations, which works as a strong drive to make publications more productive. When the marginalized fields like medieval English studies are meeting with a new generation who attempt to do something new and different to expand the boundary of the field. So if I retrieve with medieval English literature and theme from CNKI, we can find that the earliest publication accurate is from 1892, and also the newest publications from English and Chinese can show up at the same time. Also, papers on Chaucer from 1957, you can find 125, and this is the general trend. So from 1950s to 1980s, there is a blackness, and then there is a relative stable growth, although there is alternative rise and fall. And also I use the Chaoxing discovery to find that the Canterbury tales from 1950s to 2020 can find different publications. So the orange means books, green line means their journals, and the blue means thesis and dissertation, and the dark blue means newspaper. You can find, especially the journals are very useful to publish papers on the Canterbury tales. And also papers on Beowulf. I retrieved with Beowulf in titles. You can find that the earliest publications happened in 1983. And then you can find the concurrence of keywords. You can, from the clusters and the boards, you can know the hot topics. The researchers talk about Beowulf and about the Chaucer, concurrence of the keywords. Also, we can find the expansion of the different cities. In 1910s, it was in Shanghai, but now expanded further from Beijing and the Yangtze River Delta region to northwest, for example, Xi'an here, to northeast here, Changchun here, south, Guangzhou, and also southwest, Chengdu City. So if you want to summarize, you can find that first, the breakthrough happened in 1957 when Fu Ningli, who graduated from Yale University, published 2 papers to have a close reading of adjectives in Chaucer with academic readability and assessment, but was rejected due to its capitalist research method, which stresses the past more than the present, and its uselessness for people to know more than Western language and literature. The latter position, of course, is an outcome of Rashomon. From the 1980s on, Chinese medievalists started to play the roles of researchers, supervisors, and readers, and consist of a gradually stable and energetic international group. When in the first generation born in early 1990s joined the community, what should be noticed that the critical methods differ from those in the past in that the medievalists like Nan Yingliu, a disciple of Fu Ningli and also my supervisor, in 1990s start to apply Western literature theory to read medieval English literature. He believes that the study should be placed in an international context and the researchers should do like what the foreign medievalists do. Also, there is a very important change of attitudes towards the Middle Ages. The agreement has been reached since the 1990s that the Middle Ages is not dark at all, when in the 1980s a statement went as Renaissance indicated a revival of classical arts and sciences after the dark ages of medieval obscurantism. To use the Canterbury tales and Beowulf examples, we can find that the number and the types of publications and the co-occurrence network of keywords show that the study has become increasingly active as thriving with multiple and interdisciplinary perspectives. When people used to talk about more about the tradition, from 2,000 years on, the study differs from the past that Chinese medievalists do not just focus on Chaucer and Beowulf poet, but turn their eyes to the other canonized writers and relatively marginalized fields. The publications in the 21st century gradually make a dialogue with the global community to some degree due to talent flow, convenient media, different databases available at home and abroad, and international communication and cooperation. For example, visit at universities like Oxford, Cambridge, Toronto, Harvard, Cornell, Bristol. Today, the new members are mainly domestically supervised, and the group of medievalists is expanded because those who graduate from American or European universities settle to teach, supervise, publish, make lectures to further the research. And also I want to mention that 2 centers in Zhejiang University and Shanghai Jiaotong University have organized the annual conferences respectively issued their first volume of journals in 2019. Several medievalists are members of SSMLL and the New Chaoxing Society. For the third part, digitalization and production, and I use the instrument is the questionnaire through the jump and partly present here. My questions focus on the roles of manuscripts and the current digital materials. And the purpose is to know contemporary researchers' application of digital materials and their attitudes. And the participants are 22 medievalists who study medieval English literature and history. So, some questions. What have you done with manuscripts? As you can find that more than 80% of participants scan or download the digital versions. And the preferences about their reading. First, you can find the copies of modern English version, digital version, and also you can find copies of transcribed versions or digital manuscripts. And most of them printed the digital versions. And the means for them to get the digital materials. The first is downloading software or websites abroad. And next is the databases in their home university. And also the other people or institutions help. And their degree to rely on digital materials you can find very strong, more than 90%. And the disadvantages. The first is failure to find the materials in great need, and also incompleteness of the content or copyright infringement. And about the audiobooks and the visual sources, you can find that about 45% of participants listen to the audiobooks, and they also depend on document films and also open class and films to know more about medieval English literature and culture. Also, you can find that today there is AI narration. Here you can find AI man's voice, AI woman's voice. You can make a choice. And also there is a dynamic community. So as we can find that the reproduction of manuscripts has blurred the textual boundaries. But the physical and the reproduced ones both refer to a reconstructed reality. The reference to the transcribed copy, to the digital manuscripts, even to the manuscript themselves, makes the reconstruction approach a relatively raw medieval England when medievalists used to be seized with a serious lack of materials. Also, the digitalization has changed the academic ecology by getting rid of the islands of information when people used to read with the copies available, and made the sources, which used to be hierarchical and unbalanced in its distribution, now shelved, portable, audible, visible, and integrated in a pattern of democracy. What's more, the medieval lists gain information through visual audio media. The AI makes the reading a product of cooperation of man and robots in transmitting the knowledge, and knowledge production open, while reading or listening, commenting, and sharing make up an online dynamic academic community. What should be pointed out is that the reliance on the digital materials makes the medievalist have timely understanding of the new trends, which in turn may foster new academic growth or reproduction and makes the study in depth and width. The last point I want to say is that sometimes maybe we can experience the sense of alienation, but the humanity behind the digitalization is that justice and relatively equal communication and exchange without regard to nationality, race, and gender, respect for individual research, freedom and the search for truth, and hopefully an ideal world. So in some medieval English studies has experienced a dramatic academic evolution in different social, historical, and academic contexts. Generations of Chinese medievalists' ideas and perspectives are interacted with. Let me end my talk with medieval Chinese poet Du Mu's words. Study is not like exploring beautiful flowers, but a search for the roots to know the truth. We look forward to a brilliant future of medieval English studies in China.